By most any metric, Led Zeppelin is one of the greatest rock bands of all time. Inducted into the sometimes controversial Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in its first year of eligibility, Led Zeppelin enjoys several entries on the list of the best-selling albums of all time. Impressively piped singer Robert Plant, shredding guitar virtuoso Jimmy Page, and frenetic drummer John Bonham are often considered among the best ever to do what they did. Led Zeppelin's style of electric blues meets heavy metal proved highly influential on 20th century rock, and more than 50 years past the band's heyday, standards such as Whole Lotta Love, Immigrant Song, and Stairway to Heaven remain staples of classic rock radio. While it sold millions of records and never had a #1 hit, Led Zeppelin is almost unparalleled in the canon of rock legends. Moreover, some of those who've spoken up to declare their dislike of one of the greatest hard rock acts of all time are important musicians themselves. So when they publicly note their distaste for the band, it gets a lot of ink. Here are some of the biggest rock stars of all time united in their hatred for Led Zeppelin or its music. Pete Townsen. Although Pete Townsen regrets joining The Who, one of the loudest, heaviest, and most successful rock bands of the 1960s and 1970s, he much prefers the music of his group to that of another one operating in the same milieu during the same time frame, Led Zeppelin. The guitarist considers Zeppelin something of a rip-off act. He said, "We sort of invented heavy metal with Live at Leeds. We were copied by so many bands, principally by Led Zeppelin, you know. Heavy drums, heavy bass, and heavy lead guitar." In a 1995 interview, Townsen again discussed his frustrations with Led Zeppelin's sound. "I just never ever liked them. It's a real problem to me, cause as people I think they're all really great guys. Just never liked the band. They became so much bigger than The Who in so many ways. In their chosen field, I've never liked them." Townsen got in one more tongue-in-cheek jab when delivering a lecture at the 2011 radio festival. "I think rock music is junk. I'm a genius. The Who were okay. But without me, they would have all ended up working in the flower market or worse." Keith Richards. Led Zeppelin released its first eponymous album in 1969. Right away, the guitarist from another major British rock band of the era, Keith Richards, was a fan until he couldn't get past Robert Plant's vocals. "I played their album quite a few times when I first got it, but then the guy's voice started to get on my nerves," Richards told Rolling Stone in 1969. "I don't know why, maybe he's a little too acrobatic, but Jimmy Page is a great guitar player, and a very respected one." More than 45 years later, Richards' opinion hadn't changed much. He still appreciated the contributions of a fellow guitarist, but harbored insurmountable problems with a different member and the whole vibe of Led Zeppelin. "I love Jimmy Page, but as a band, no," with John Bonham thundering down the highway in an uncontrolled 18-wheeler. He had cornered the market there. Richards told Rolling Stone about the group's drummer. "Jimmy is a brilliant player, but I always felt there was something a little hollow about it." Jack Bruce. Along with Led Zeppelin, another British band from the late 1960s took some guitar blues traditions and made them louder and harder. Cream. The band consisted of just 3 people and was led by bassist and main vocalist Jack Bruce. The two groups were often compared to one another. In particular, the guitarists who drove the band's sound, Eric Clapton of Cream and Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. Bruce didn't think it was a fair contest. "What? You're gonna compare Eric Clapton with that Jimmy Page? Would you really compare that?" Bruce asked rhetorically in an interview with Classic Rock magazine in 2008 following a one-show-only reunion of Led Zeppelin's surviving members. Bruce had some strong feelings about the reconstituted Led Zeppelin, which came about 2 years after a brief Cream reunion. "Everybody talks about Led Zeppelin, and they played one lame gig while Cream did weeks of gigs. Proper gigs, not just a lame gig like Zeppelin did, with all the keys lowered and everything," Bruce said. "Fuck off, Zeppelin, you're crap. You've always been crap and you'll never be anything else. The worst thing is that people believe the crap that they're sold. Cream is 10 times the band that Led Zeppelin is." Ginger Baker. Providing the rhythm for the blues rock power trio Cream was drummer Ginger Baker. He joined the supergroup with Jack Bruce and Eric Clapton after training as a jazz drummer and playing with Blues Incorporated and the Graham Bond Organization. He largely shared his frontman's opinion of Cream's late 60s would-be blues rock rival band Led Zeppelin. He said, "I don't think Led Zeppelin filled the void that Cream left, but they made a lot of money. I probably like about 5% of what they did. A couple of things were really cool. What I don't like is the heavy bish bash, jing bash bullshit. Baker's feelings about Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham were much more straightforward. There's no way John was anywhere near what I am. He wasn't a musician. A lot of people don't realize I studied. I can write music. Bonham had technique, but he couldn't swing a sack of sucks. Kurt Cobain. Under the artistic guidance of frontman and main songwriter Kurt Cobain, Nirvana ushered in the grunge rock movement of the 1990s. Characterized by thundering guitar riffs played on down-tuned guitars, the music was a new form of punk rock according to Cobain, while it also adhered to the traditions set forth by arena rock bands of the 1970s. Both forms of rock influenced Nirvana, although Cobain lamented having been a fan of some bands in particular when he was an impressionable teenager, for what he found to be a through line of misogyny. Kurt said, "Although I listened to Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin, and I really did enjoy some of the melodies they'd written, it took me so many years to realize that a lot of it had to do with sexism. The way that they just wrote about their death and having sex. I was just starting to understand what really was me off so much those last couple of years of high school, and then punk rock was exposed, and then it all came together. It just fit together like a puzzle." Angus Young, coming up behind Led Zeppelin on the list of the top-selling hard rock bands of all time, as well as chronologically AC/DC. As Led Zeppelin was wrapping up its run in the late 1970s, AC/DC was releasing album after album of straightforward, no-nonsense, fist-pumping stadium rock. During a 1977 conversation with reporter Harry Doherty, AC/DC guitarist Angus Young lamented the woeful direction that rock music had taken in recent years. And he put the blame on one band. He said, "They must have progressed the wrong way. I'll tell you when it stopped getting good, when the Rolling Stones put out Jumpin' Jack Flash and Street Fightin' Man. Past that there's nothing. Led Zeppelin and all that have just been poor imitators of The Who and bands like that. That's when I reckon it stopped." Young took a dislike to Led Zeppelin after catching a lackluster concert by the group. "I've seen that band live and they were on for 3 hours. For 2.5 hours they bored the audience, and then at the end they pull out old rock and roll numbers to get the crowd moving. That's sick. They're supposed to be the most exciting rock and roll band in the world." Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is such a highly regarded lyricist that he's as much of a poet as he is a musician. And in 2016, he won a Nobel Prize for Literature for his large body of songwriting work. His lyrical compositions are often flowery and cryptic, but he didn't need very many words to memorably express his distaste for the music of Led Zeppelin. After playing keyboards in The Small Faces and The Faces, Ian Mulligan became a member of Dylan's backing band, touring with the singer-songwriter in the 1970s and 1980s. When Led Zeppelin was still an active band in the mid-1970s, the group's manager Peter Grant spotted Dylan at a star-studded event. Mulligan remembered their brief conversation in his memoir, All the Rage. "Hello Bob, I'm Peter Grant. I manage Led Zeppelin." Dylan's retort, "I don't come to you with my problems.